Good morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship's online Zoom service. I'm the Reverend Sara LaWall, and it is my great honor to serve this beloved community. I join you today live from our sanctuary with our beautiful community tree behind me, complete with those wonderful houses from our Celebration Sunday worship service, which seems like so long ago now, but was really at the end of April. It is a delight to be with you in this worship space together. We are a community gathered to nurture spiritual growth, connection, and faithful action for a better world. All who join us in the spirit of curiosity, love, and justice are welcome this morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, your presence is a blessing. Whether you are here every Sunday, once or twice a year, or you are joining us today for the first time, we are glad that you are here. I do want to take a moment to especially welcome our newcomers among us. We know it takes a lot of courage to join a new community, and we are so glad that you've chosen us this morning. And we invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat so that we can warmly welcome you. And we'll put a link to our newcomer forum in the chat so that you can sign up to receive our newsletters, and we can keep in touch with you about all that is happening in our fellowship. And we do have a lot going on and a lot more that's ramping up. A lot of virtual community is still happening among us. I want to highlight just a couple of things, particularly for our newcomers among us, those of you that are newer to our fellowship, whether it's weeks or months. We're beginning our newcomers series called the Inquirer series that starts today. It's a series of 5 sessions designed to introduce you to our fellowship and to Unitarian Universalism, and it meets in its own breakout room after the service today. So we invite you to stick around for that, and we'll get you all put in that breakout room together. For today's topic is our UU principles and history. And just this past Wednesday, a group of choir members gathered in a beautiful farewell celebration organized by our music director, Carrie, to say farewell to Alan and Mary Schwartzman. Many of you know the Schwartzmans have been members in this congregation for more than 50 years, giving their lives and dedicating themselves and their love and their generosity to stewarding this community, really from almost nearly the beginning. They are moving to Pennsylvania, to a beautiful new community, close to one of their daughters, but they will be deeply and sorely missed among us. Their legacy lives in so many spaces. And so a group of board members and leaders came together to figure out how we could appropriately honor the Schwartzmans, and it would not surprise you to know that they don't really want much of a fuss, but we're gonna fuss a little. This amazing sculpture that's really heavy, this group of leaders decided perhaps we could create an award to honor the Schwartzmans in our community. And so our own board president, Sara Cox, designed the Schwartzmans. This is the award. It is a presentation that will be presented to people in our congregation who embody the Schwartzmans in all the beautiful and silly and wonderful ways that we have come to know and love them. Whether it's being full of sunshine and love, like Mary, channeling your inner Mary, or being that troll under the bridge with a little bit of pithy wisdom and sarcasm like Alan, they will forever be in our midst. And while we haven't quite figured out exactly how we will determine recipients of the Schwartzmans, we do know this, that this award will only be presented. It will not be allowed to be taken home by the recipients because the Schwartzmans must always remain here at Booth. We will miss you dearly. We love you, and we wish you all the best blessings and love on this next part of your journey. And thank you for blessing us for 50 plus years. As we gather together each week, even virtually, we take a moment to acknowledge that the land upon which our church and homes exist is the ancestral land stolen from the Shoshone-Bannock, the Shoshone-Paiute, Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai, and Nez Perce tribes, along with many other tribes whose names have been lost in history, all of whom inhabited a vast region, including much of Idaho, before they were rounded up and forced to leave. We acknowledge that our presence here today is founded upon the exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples. And with our acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our commitment to the ongoing work of dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism, honoring the Indigenous people's connection to the land, and supporting their right to sovereignty. Today's service explores the themes of creation, mystery, and possibility. I am deeply grateful for our Director of Family Ministries, Jem Emerson-Paige, for their inspiration for today's service and their creative, collaborative partnership in making it come to life. We offer it as a blessing for all of you today. Our world faces so many deeply concerning challenges that cry out for our attention. And it makes us wonder, how can we sustain ourselves and future generations? In order to thrive and build a future that works for all of us, we must use our creativity to explore what's possible for us, what is most meaningful for us, and what is worth our precious time. We must recreate, reauthor, reimagine our presence and our future, individually and collectively, and welcome the joy and play in the space of that recreation. Poet and activist Audre Lorde wrote, "There are no new ideas, only new ways of making them felt." And so today we dive into those new ways of feeling old ideas, to joy and play for revolutionary times. Inspired by our theme today of recreation and joy and play, we invite you into that space of creation with us, to play with us by helping us create and craft our call to worship, which we'll use when we light our chalices together in just a few moments. So we have 3 words of our theme, and we invite you to share in the chat short descriptive words or phrases that come to mind when you hear these words. We're going to start with the first word. The first word is creation. So what comes to mind when you hear the word creation? Fill out the chat for us. Here they come. Good. What comes to mind when you hear the word creation? These are wonderful. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move on to the next word. If you didn't have a chance to participate in creation, there are more words coming your way. Now I invite you to share with us in the chat what comes to mind when you hear the word mystery. When you hear the word mystery, what comes to mind? Wonderful. The PBS series, I love it. Let's see how that will work itself into our call to worship. Okay, last word, here we are. What comes to mind, short words or phrases, when you hear the word possibility? What comes to mind when you hear the word possibility? Good, you're getting so fast now. You're really getting into it. This is wonderful. I can't even keep up with your thoughts. Excellent. Thank you. All right, you can keep them coming. We are going to do our best to weave as many of your contributions into the call to worship, but they are here preserved in our chat for us all to contemplate together. So as we move more fully into this time of worship together, I invite us all to breathe. Let's take a moment to center ourselves, to breathe into that beautiful connection and collaboration we just created, to know that our breath connects us to the source of life, to our deepest selves, and to one another. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-driven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep, to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
I invite everyone to join in greeting this new morning that surrounds us and greeting the miracle of life with these words by Dory Midnight and Randy Firosh Stewart. This reworking of the Biro Kashashar was created as a morning blessing that honors Jewish concepts of the divine while expanding the language to be inclusive of queerness and disability. It is read by Miss Major Griffin Gracie, Adrienne Marie Brown, and many other creative visionaries.
Blessed are you, awakener, life of all worlds, who remove sleep from my eyes and slumber from my eyelids.
Blessed are you, generous creatrix, who stretches forth the earth upon the waters.
Blessed are you, sacred flame, who shines your light upon everyone and everything.
Blessed are you, wings of gold, who crowns my people, all people, with splendor.
Blessed are you, holy fashion designer, who delights in the way we dress ourselves as altars.
Blessed are you, nameless and infinite, who has made us in your image and reminds us that all bodies are sacred and holy. Boom, boom.
Blessed are you, liberation worker, who moves us to stretch and expand towards freedom.
Blessed are you, divine apple orchard, who delights in my delight and receives my pleasure as praise.
Blessed are you, the way, who meets me where I am.
Blessed are you, holy breath, who fills me with this gift every day.
Blessed are you, abundance, for helping me remember I have everything I need.
Blessed are you, source of life, who I draw upon for strength and who reminds me that rest is a sacred act.
Blessed are you, fabulous one, who loves me just as I am.
Blessed are you, weaver of being, who shaped the human being with wisdom, making for us all of the openings and vessels of the body. It is known that we are miracles and that all bodies are miracles.
Blessed are you, you of many names, for revealing infinite paths of healing.
Blessed are you,
You of many names,
for revealing
infinite paths of healing.
At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in living rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalists are also lighting a flaming chalice, reminding us that we are part of a great community of faith. If you have a chalice nearby, you are invited to light it with us this morning. And if you like, hold your chalice up to the camera while we click on gallery view and see all of our chalices being lit. You are invited to share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. With our collective chalices lit in all our worship spaces, we offer you this call to worship created collectively by this beloved community.
When the beauty of creation, being, oneness, God, the universe, surrounds us, may we bask in its blooming garden, feeling the purity of life rain down upon us. May we praise the earth created in the Big Bang and embrace our inner child playing, the artistry that surrounds us, and the story of our beginnings.
When mystery speaks to our hearts, may we have the grace to lean in to uncertainty, to fall in love with suspense. May we never take for granted our connection to that which is more than ourselves, our individual being, the sacred night sky, the churning galaxy all around us, the miracle of seeds growing. May we know the joy of not knowing, of sacred unknown. May we feed our desire for adventure and our curiosity. May we treat excitement as a holy messenger.
When possibility reveals itself, that everything with no boundaries, the imagination that stirs within and among us, dreaming, the expanse of all things. And when possibility is hard to find, may we welcome the newness, the anticipation, the spirit of I can, knowing all things are possible. May we bless the future, knowing exploration calls, filled with limitless choices, with hope for the future. We can do this together.
Let us welcome the joy and play of creation, the beauty and blessing of mystery, and all the possibilities that find their way to us, even in the darkest of times. Come, let us worship together. I invite everyone to cozy up for our time for all ages this morning. I wonder, what is the last creative thing that you did? Mine was mere moments ago. When was the last time you imagined a world different from the one that you live in? The last time you imagined new creatures or new adventures? What bits and pieces did you keep from our current world and play with and rearrange? Our story this morning is a creation story, beginning at the start of our universe. Telling, retelling, and reimagining creation stories helps us think about what is most important to us, what forces made the world around. Let's listen to an adaptation of the creation story called A Playful Mystery, and it's adapted from Thomas Rhodes. And let's explore how mystery can help us open to imagining and playing with possibility. Once upon a time, a long time ago, a very, very, very long time ago, like before your parents were born, there was a mystery. She was a great mystery, and nobody listened to her or explored with her, mainly because there was no one else around to listen or explore much of anything. For a long, long time, nothing happened. Mystery waited and waited and waited some more until at last she said, "Boring." And so Mystery set stars in the sky, planets to circle the stars, and comets to wander to and fro. And it was all very beautiful. But after a couple of billion years of watching, Mystery decided that it was still boring. Mystery was lonely. She wanted someone to play with. So she looked all around the stars and the planets, considering. Some were too hot. Others were too cold. Some of the planets were too big. Some were too little. Finally, she found one that was just right. Set in a little solar system, it was just far enough away from its sun. It was covered in water, and it had great bits of land sticking up out of it, like mountains and whatnot. There were even plains and rivers and gorgeous landscapes. Best of all, there were these tiny, tiny creatures. Protozoa, they were called. There are tiny creatures. And they were everywhere. That they lived and squirmed in the water. Mystery called out to them, "Come play!" And the protozoa just kept on squirming like they hadn't even heard her, which isn't surprising. They didn't have any ears. After another couple of billion years watching the stars and the planets and the comets and the squirming protozoa, Mystery decided once again this was boring. She got an idea. She decided to glue some of the protozoa together with some stuff called protoplasm. And when they were stuck together, the protozoa began forming and working together. They made eyes, feet, mouths, stomachs, and ears. Oops, gosh. They started changing. Now they can see and move around and digest and eat and hear me. But even as these new creatures were developing, we didn't pay a lot of attention to her. Just enjoying their little lives. The new creatures watched each other, and they moved around, and they ate, and they digested each other too. At least it was as interesting as watching the stars and planets and comets. It was even more interesting because the new creatures watched and moved around and digested and ate, and they changed. They grew. They experimented. Oh gosh, sorry. They experimented and created new songs and sounds. And when Mystery heard these, it sounded like a wonderful chorus to her, which got her thinking, maybe some of the animals could use their mouths for singing and talking as well as eating. That would make for great play. So she waited and watched as the animals continued to change, and it delighted her. After another bazillion years, she saw something strange. There's some new creatures, but they were really funny looking. All of their fur was stuck on top of their head and some clumps around their bodies. They walked around, moved around upright on 2 feet instead of 4. But what was really interesting was the way that they could talk and share ideas. They played and explored together. It was interesting, and it made her think they could be so much fun to play with. She enjoyed watching them and giving them new ideas. But Mystery was always careful to make sure the humans never saw her or heard her directly, because then she wouldn't be a mystery anymore. She wouldn't be able to be just herself. The humans were curious and wanted to know more about the great mystery. Was the mystery at all human, like they were? Did the mystery care about them? Which she would reply if she said anything out loud, "Of course I do." If they prayed hard enough, would the mystery make their crops grow? To which mystery thought, perhaps, but only if you take care of the earth. The humans had lots of other questions too, like, where do we come from? What are we supposed to do with our lives? Why do people suffer, get sick, and die? But the mystery was silent about these things. She knew that if she spoke to them, the humans would think she was a god like they wrote about in their ancient books. But mystery was far beyond anything the humans could imagine or write about. She didn't want to terrify the humans, and besides, it was more interesting this way. More time passed. The humans kept on growing and changing. They gathered themselves together in villages and towns. They argued a lot about what they were supposed to be doing with their lives, but mystery kept quiet, hoping they would figure it out for themselves. Humans kept building more cities, more roads, more fields, more machines. Many stopped caring for the earth and living in caring relationships with other living beings that shared this world with them. When mystery realized that these humans thought they had figured everything out for themselves, she became very sad. It seemed the humans were too busy building and arguing to play anymore and explore this colorful world that had grown them. No, she knew that simply telling, all around them were brilliant colors and smells, adventures to be had, flowers to grow, and rainbows to spot. This was the perfect planet for play. She knew that simply telling the humans what to do would take all of the fun out of playing, no matter how loudly or clearly she spoke to them. As soon as they felt certainty about her, they would simply stop listening and playing and exploring. So maybe instead of telling the humans what to do in a loud voice like thunder, she should use a softer voice to encourage them to keep listening and experimenting. Maybe instead of speaking to their ears, she should speak into their hearts. Instead of words, she could use feelings. This is exactly what she did. If you listen very closely, you will hear what mystery is saying to you. Don't listen with your ears, listen with your heart. Think about what you feel when you consider this beautiful planet our home. Do you feel joy? A sense of wonder? Do you feel thankful? Do you feel love? Each of these feelings is a part of the mystery, because each of us is part of the mystery. When we recognize and act on our feelings of joy, wonder, thanksgiving, and love, then mystery will play with us and through us for a long, long time to come. And we can better care for this great, beautiful creation that we are a part of. I wonder, when was a time that listening to your emotions helped you out, helped you feel calmer, safer, more connected? I wonder, what's a big idea you have about what is possible? Something exciting that you think would make the world a better or more playful place? If you could tell your own creation story for our universe and for life on Earth, who or what would be there at the beginning? And how have they helped to change the world to be what it is now? I invite everyone in singing along with our community blessing as we bless this multi-generational community full of ever learning, ever growing, ever justice seeking beloveds.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
Thank you, Jem, for that beautiful story about mystery. When we listen with our hearts, the way the story invited the humans to listen, to be able to hear the mystery speaking through their hearts, we often hear the call of the world. We are able to get in touch with the needs, with our values, with what is calling to us to build the world we dream about and bring more goodness and kindness and love into the world. And one of the ways we practice that is through the practice of generosity, by giving of ourselves to those highest ideals and values. We take up an offering each week to practice that generosity and to give a portion of that generosity out into the world. This month, our plate partner is the Jesse Tree, working to keep people housed before they are experiencing homelessness, doing extraordinary work in our community. You can participate in our offering by going to our website at boiseuu.org and clicking Give at the top right corner of the screen and following our prompts. Thank you for your generosity, for listening to your heart and to the call of the world. Our offering will now be received.
There's a new day coming, everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? There's a new day coming, everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? For far too many years I've been marching, singing and talking, doing things I thought would make me free. While people halfway around the world, they've been fighting and dying and bleeding. Now it seems that they're gonna be. There's a new world coming, everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? You know the book, the Bible, you read it and you see. It will surely come to pass. This is how it's gonna be. Those that were weak and humble would come and gain the earth. Them that shuddered at the bottom would rise and rule the world. There's a new world coming, everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? The nations of Asia and Africa, they're taking over their lives. The sisters and brothers south of us are finally getting wise. Then take a look, United States of the North American climb. Your strange mixture of wealth and hate, you won't be exempt this time. There's a new world coming, everything is turning over, everything be turning over. Where you gonna be standing when it comes? There's a new world coming, everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be standing? Where you gonna be standing? Where you gonna be standing when it comes?
Good morning, all. My name is Emily Emerson-Paige, and I also joyfully go by Jem, and my pronouns are they and them. This August marks a couple of big anniversaries for me. 9 years of membership in this community and 3 years of serving as staff for our family ministries. I have so much love for this Boise UU community, and I hold some deep hopes for the future of Unitarian Universalism. So this service is my imperfect attempt to articulate that hope for y'all and my gratitude for this whole and holy people. I fell in love with the reading we used to center our worship this morning, Queer Morning Blessing, early this year as the video was circulated widely on social media at a time when many of us were tensely watching as 1 year anniversaries of our initial responses to COVID-19 came and went. It resonates with a deep part of us tangled up in the depths of grief, yearning for something to lean against for relief in the face of exponential losses. The creator, Dory Midnight, saw a need in her Jewish and queer communities for a daily practice that connected them to that deep grief. A ritual that serves, quote, serves as, quote, even one moment of acknowledging this tender moment. She writes of the practice of Birkat HaShachar, I love this ancestral gift we were given. Here is how to greet the dawn and stretch out your limbs in gratitude. Gratitude is one of the spiritually rigorous ways that we can use to account for what is in our lives. Queer morning blessings versus don't instruct us in what shape these miraculous bodies ought to be in, or the direction we will find freedom and liberation in. It guides us to be open with language that doesn't ask anyone to be less than their holy selves, to see themselves in those words. This blessing that reworked traditional liturgy of the Talmud was reworked to be inclusive towards queerness and disability, and was offered in a time when the global pandemics threaten disabled and queer lives in staggering ways, especially BIPOC members of those communities. The fault lines of this white supremacist, capitalist, punitive society are only expanding in the ways that we are isolated from care and from community. We've been handed a world broken by design. How are we going to respond? Audre Lorde writes, "For there are no new ideas. There are only new ways of making them felt, of examining what those ideas feel like being lived on Sunday morning at 7 a.m., after brunch, during wild love, making war, giving birth, mourning our dead, while we suffer the old longings, battle the old warnings and fears of being silent and impotent and alone, while we taste new possibilities and strength." Divine mystery and our connection to what is possible for our world already has been. Mystery opens up to us each day, asking to be blessed as she blesses us, asking for us to play in this divine creation we're part of, listening, experimenting, recreating alongside of her. In the work of building sustainable, supported futures, we're already living out the possibilities of those futures. There are no new ideas. There are only new ways to open ourselves up to those possibilities. Dedicate ourselves to recreating what we have. Recreation is a liberatory practice, recontextualizing our lives outside of the forces that would have us isolated and desperate. Bernice Johnson Reagan's protest song asks us, "There's a new world coming. Where are you going to be standing when it comes?" This process, reauthoring, recreating the world we inhabit, the world we live into, happens in every moment. Every day there's a new world coming. Every day, everything keeps on turning. It's in how we use our attention, our resources, our connections to others that we shape that world. I recently read it this year on a car trip, but Octavia Butler's novel, The Parable of the Sower, I highly recommend it. And in that novel, Miss Butler insists that everyone has the power to make predictions about what will be, to thoughtfully engage in what is, the reality of the world around us, and to imagine what could be and what likely will be. Her protagonist, at 15 years old, showed concern for and dedication to preparing her community for what that future could be, in all its fragility and uncertainty. She looked around her and named the one truth that accounted for all that she saw. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. That book is peppered with powerhouse verses of wisdom, including this earth seed that echoes that wisdom of Audre Lorde. Your teachers are all around you. All that you perceive, all that you experience, all that is given to you or taken from you, all that you love or hate, need or fear, will teach you if you will learn. God is your first and last teacher. God is your harshest teacher, subtle, demanding. Learn or die. Alice Sparkly Cat, jumping around a bit here. Alice Sparkly Cat is a queer racialized astrologer who recently published the book Post-Colonial Astrology after years of studying and reframing astrology with clarity about how it reinforces white supremacist practices, which white supremacy is insidious, it's everywhere. They write, "Responsibility is possible whenever response is possible. Race and how we construct it have not been responsive to the needs of the communities around the world. In order to make astrology a more responsible cultural practice, we must understand how astrological meaning has been constructed within our particular political and economic history. We owe the same diligence to reimagining and reworking Unitarian Universalism and all and any of the practices that nourish us and frame our sense of belonging and community. To take the beautiful, life-giving language and rituals and artifacts that we've been given and recreating them to be responsive and responsible to our present moment and our possibilities. We don't have to be certain in this work. We just have to listen and to trust. We build our future through possibility and reworking what we have been given. So let us recreate, reauthor, and reimagine our present and what is possible for our communities and our future generations.
Amen. Thank you, Jem, for that beautiful reflection, for reminding us of all of the possibility available to us in the practice of recreation, in the practice of moving through change in how we understand and perceive the world around us and allow ourselves to be changed by all that is happening, that we might then change the world. And we practice that together in community. We can help each other in those spaces. And one of the ways we can do that is by journeying with one another, holding one another up through the joys and sorrows of life. We take a moment in our services each week to name the joys and sorrows and passages in our lives, that we might lift the burden for one another and receive the blessing of community as we share them with each other. You are invited to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. And I know that there are many joys and sorrows among us in this community. I know several were shared in the last weeks. And I know that as we face the continuing challenge of the pandemic and new variants of COVID-19 and rising hospitalizations and death, we're facing that all too familiar grief and fear and uncertainty that we faced 18 months ago. And so I invite us to hold one another gently and lovingly as we move through this time together, sharing those hard things with one another, just as Chuck already has shared in the chat that 2 of his friends at the Meridian Senior Center have died of COVID. Our hearts crack open and we send to each other and receive the blessing of being in this beloved community together. Let us share together. hold the joys and sorrows of our beloved community alongside the silent prayers we keep close to our hearts. Gathered up with the joys and sorrows of our nation and our world, we hold them all close, breathing them in and sending forth love. Amen. In my youth and in my young adulthood, I attended a liberal, ultra-progressive United Methodist Church in Tucson, Arizona, called St. Francis in the Foothills. Now, I know some of you are thinking, how's that possible, ultra-liberal, ultra-progressive United Methodist Church? But that's what they were. What I didn't know then was just how different this Methodist church was from any other Methodist church in its conference and probably in the nation. I mean, its progressive bent outshined some of our Unitarian Universalist churches. And this was the 90s, early 90s. And the church was openly welcoming of LGBTQ plus folks. And we hosted a liberal, reform Jewish congregation in our sanctuary. And so the Ark of the Covenant sat back in the corner every Sunday. And social justice formed the core of our spiritual identity as we committed to living out our faith in the world. And while the theology was still Christian, St. Francis pushed itself to make its practice and expression of that Christianity as wide and welcoming and accessible as possible. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before. It was there that I heard and recited my first gender-neutral prayers. We spoke the words, Creator, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It was there that I first heard feminine pronouns used for God outside of a pagan community. She leads me beside still waters. She restores my soul. She anoints my head with oil. The music was incredible and transformative, passionate and evocative. The sermons were powerful, deep, and personal, given without a pulpit or a written text, just the minister on the chancel in slacks and a shirt and tie, no robe, no stole, just him. This is something to which I still aspire. Every lyric, every word, every prayer thoughtfully chosen and generously reworded to open up all the possibilities for meaning, for personal transformation and spiritual experience. I would sit in the chairs each week, and inevitably, without fail, the tears would flow. It wasn't until I started on my path to ministry that I had an epiphany about that time and realized that I love liturgy. Each element of worship thoughtfully woven together to evoke spiritual meaning and deep experience and provoke intellectual curiosity and feelings yet unexplored, to transform me, that I might be inspired to transform the world. I hold that formative church experience and that liturgy up as a model for my own ministry. And liturgy is a funny word. For Unitarians, it feels like a very churchy, overly religious word, suggesting orthodoxy and doctrine, maybe even tinged with a little stuffiness, which makes many of us a little bit uncomfortable. And yet liturgy is at the heart of our worship life. And one might argue it's at the heart of our Unitarian Universalist faith. It infuses everything we do in the name of Unitarian Universalism and this fellowship, from lighting the chalice during every gathering, even at our board meetings, to meditating together, to singing our community blessing, to sharing our joys and sorrows, to showing up at protests and rallies at the legislature, to sending emails to the county commissioners, to all those little rituals we engage in that help us ready ourselves, center ourselves, and ground ourselves for a time of spiritual reflection and contemplation, whether that's on Sunday mornings or on a walk through the grove or the green belt. The ancient Greek origins of the word liturgy suggest that it means the work for the people, or public service, if you will. It's a very you embodiment of the word, if you ask me. Work for the people, or work of the people, public service. Every time we gather together as a church community, we are doing the work of the people. Every week when we worship together, we are doing the work of the people. We are creating and partaking in a collective public service, one that we hope generates wholeness, healing, and transformation in ourselves and in our wider world. So liturgy then is both a deeply spiritual practice and a liberatory practice. It must serve something larger than our individual selves. Mystery, wonder, awe, transcendence, the ground of being, the universe, God, human goodness. Liturgy must speak to both sorrow and joy, to despair and hope, to doubt and faith, to harm and love. Because as I experienced in my youth at St. Francis, liturgy becomes the fuel for our lives during the week, that touchstone that helps us remember who we are in our deepest divine self, and how we see others in that same way and heal the world. Liturgy is one of those teachers that is all around us. This particular service today was inspired by and designed around a specific piece of liturgy, that beautiful queer morning blessings, or Bikrat Hashashar, blessings of the dawn. In the Jewish tradition, this blessing was lovingly reworked by its authors to be inclusive and welcoming, liberatory, to offer up blessing and expression of the divine that particularly invites those who are so often excluded and ostracized from religious life to reclaim their divinity and to be centered in the words and in those beautiful visuals we saw on the video. This is a revolutionary practice, especially for a religious community. There are moments when I think it's easy for us as Unitarian Universalists to take some of that for granted, because we've been practicing it for a while now. We openly welcome the LGBTQ folk in our midst, in our ministry. We teach sex ed, we march in the Pride Parade. We talk about dismantling systemic racism and systems of white supremacy in church. And while we often stumble, and we don't always get it right, at the core of our Universalist theology is that theology that everyone is worthy of love. And it lives at the heart of our community. And it informs us in all that we do together. And there are just so many people who have been so wounded and experienced deep spiritual trauma at the hands of religious communities. They cannot even fathom that something like this exists. I see it and hear it all the time. I'm not trying to overly brag or inflate our egos. In fact, we work regularly to try to deflate our egos when it comes to welcoming and inclusion and dismantling systems of oppression. But I share this to name the power of the work we do as Unitarian Universalists when we remember those core values and theological threads of who we are. and when we keep recreating liturgy that allows those values and theologies to shine forth. That is why we work to ask ourselves hard questions about who is included and who is not, who is centered and who is not, who is still left on the outside. How can we draw our circle wide enough to fit everyone? And that's why we sometimes change the language of beloved hymns, like standing on the side of love to answering the call of love, removing the ableist language. I now hear the words of that hymn in a whole new way. It's come alive again. It speaks for the people. It works for the people differently. That's the power of liturgy. It's been transformed, reworked, recreated. That is liturgy as public service. And liturgy can be harmful. It can be narrow and unmoving, confining us to a theology that becomes more ideology than possibility and opportunity. But liturgy, as I experienced at St. Francis and as we seek to create here, can also be a threshold to transformation. It can allow us to be seen and to reclaim our own divine spark in whatever way we need and want to express it. Often giving those old ideas new words, new language, and new emotion along the way. So liturgy at its core must constantly invite us to reform, rework, recreate, re-envision, reinvent, refine, reevaluate, resist, reimagine, respond. Over and over again until it becomes embedded in our being and part of how we show up in the world and part of how we show up to ourselves. Liturgy invites us to lean in to the mystery, to create holy possibility in our lives. It is the space we inhabit that helps us embrace uncertainty, experience healing, and create healing in our lives and the world. Perhaps then, our task together is to both recreate and surrender to liturgy, to let it work for us, the people, to reshape us, liberate us, change us, that we might change the world. May it be so. Amen. So we invite you now into that space, surrender, practice, to yet again recreate liturgy as a beloved community. We invite you into this time of prayer and meditation, reprising the words of our queer morning blessings and inviting you into the physical prayer practice that accompanies it, that was crafted by the authors. Jem and I will describe the motion that connects with each line, then slowly speak the words so you can receive them and repeat the motions with us. If you're comfortable doing so, I invite you to try closing your eyes and just receiving, listening to the prayer and doing the motions the best that you can. Give yourself permission to surrender to the prayer, to let it work for you, to receive its gift. So before we begin, let's take a moment to center ourselves and breathe together.
I invite you to caress your eyes. Blessed are you, awakener, life of all worlds, who removes sleep from my eyelids and slumber from my eyes.
Feel your feet upon the solid ground. Wiggle your toes. Blessed are you, generous creatrix, who stretches forth the earth upon the waters.
Set your body to receive the light around you. Take in your surroundings. Blessed are you, sacred flame, who illuminates and shines upon everyone and everything.
Dust off your shoulders. Run your hands across your limbs. Touch the fabrics touching you. Blessed are you, holy fashion designer, who delights in the way we dress ourselves as altars.
Move from tightness to stretching wide. Blessed are you, liberation worker, who moves us to stretch and expand towards freedom.
Feel your cheeks. Blessed are you, divine apple orchard, who delights in my delight and is praised by my pleasure.
Touch your heart. Blessed are you, nameless and infinite, who made us in your image and reminds us that all bodies are sacred and holy.
Place a crown upon your head and lift your chin. Blessed are you, wings of gold, who crowns my people, all people, with splendor.
Take a breath that fills your whole body. Hold it for a moment and then let it out. Blessed are you, holy breath, who fills me with this gift every day.
Open your palms in front of you. Blessed are you, abundance, who helps me remember I have everything I need.
Let your body move how it wants to move. Blessed are you, the way, who meets me where I am.
Close your eyes and rest. Blessed are you, source of life, who I draw on for strength, and who reminds me rest is a sacred act.
Embrace yourself. Blessed are you, fabulous one, who loves me just as I am.
Place your hand somewhere that needs extra love. Blessed are you, weaver of being, who shaped the human being with wisdom, making for all of us the openings and vessels of the body. It is known that we are miracles, and all bodies are miracles.
Blessed are you, you of many names, for revealing infinite paths of healing. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough. I see myself in joy and love. I know myself, I am enough.
I got lost in that chant for a moment, but I invite you now to place your hand over your heart for our closing blessing. May we spend our days calling in the mysterious divine. May we cultivate with one another deep wonder and dedication for all the possibilities of our future. May we be turned towards futures filled with care, creativity, and liberation. Blessed are we all. Go in peace.
thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Jem, for your creativity and collaboration. Thank you, Carrie, for the beautiful music. We invite you to stick around and join our small group breakout rooms where you can have a chance to talk with one another about the service and the week and what's happening in your lives with a little more informality. And we have a special breakout room for our inquirers. And I am working on adding newcomers that I'm aware of into that breakout room. So any newcomers out there who would like to join inquirers, if you get invited to a breakout room that is just a number and isn't labeled inquirers, I invite you to click later and just hang out with me here for a moment, and I'll make sure that we get you directed into the correct breakout room. So there are 3 breakout rooms labeled with numbers and 1 breakout room labeled inquirers. And those of you who can see the breakout rooms, if you've got the updated version of Zoom, you can click that breakout rooms icon at the bottom of your menu. You can find that inquirers room and mouse over that bar and click join, and you can add yourself right into that room. So hang on a moment. Those rooms are open for you now, and I will work with our inquirers, anyone hanging out there who needs a little extra help finding the right breakout room.